Hi, I'm James McGuire, and on today's eSpeaks, we're talking about improving your cloud computing deployment. Specifically, we're looking at the mistakes that organizations should avoid when striving for cloud simplification. To discuss that, I'm joined by Grace Liu, Senior Vice President of Information Technology at Seagate Technology. Grace, I'm thrilled to have you with us today, and happy Friday to you.
Hi, James. Happy Friday to you too. Very much look forward to our chat about
Excellent.
simplification.
It's a real topic for sure. And I want to ask you, I guess, what kind of week is this for you this week? Is it a good week, a difficult week? I mean, you've made it to Friday. What is your world like this today?
Very, very, very active week. We are in the middle of a global digital transformation implementing SAP. So as you can imagine, extremely hectic. So very much look forward to the long weekend.
We should get to that. We should get to the topic of digital transformation a little bit later. It's a great topic for sure. So you've written these 4 points, at least 4 points that companies should avoid when they're trying to simplify their cloud. And obviously cloud simplification is so important because there's multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, cloud native. I mean, companies do really deal with a lot of complication here. So here's point number 1 that you've written to avoid. So, quote, increasingly, organizations are seeking simplification of architectures without the unpredictability of costs, services, and complex layers of tech at scale. It's a tricky endeavor because the fixes themselves can invite more complexity and disruption, adapting the simplifying solutions at the wrong time, end of quote. So really, in other words, what you're saying is companies sometimes mess things up when they're trying to simplify things. And do you see this as particularly a problem with multi-cloud? It seems like the potential there is enormous, but the complexity even more so.
Yeah, I think it's the same for any large-scale transformation program. Let it be business transformation, digital transformation, or just simplification of your cloud computing. Reason being is what you have today, the thing you want to simplify, it is a fabric. So simplification means you are destroying the fabric you are having today. And you may tear off a piece, you may puncture a hole. So this is the challenge or complexity you are facing. So what is required? It's the same thought process, the framework, the approach. You are facing any big scale, large scale transformation program. You have to think about the result you want to achieve at the end, and then come up with a plan. And during the process, I would say the process is equally important as the result, or sometimes far more important than the result, because without a good process, you will not be able to achieve the end result.
It's really interesting to think about the cloud deployment as a fabric. It makes perfect sense because there are all these disparate elements all woven together. So you make your second point here. This is something for companies to avoid when they're trying to simplify their cloud. Quote, only thinking about components, not solutions, end of quote. So I assume by components, you mean storage, compute, networking. So instead of those components, companies should focus on an overarching solution. That is, say, a plan. Am I getting you right here?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's pretty much all of the above components. I think this is something really important, especially for the infrastructure folks. Because you really have to think about there is an objective you want to achieve, a business objective you want to achieve at the end of simplification, not just a technology objective. You have to put yourself in the shoes of a customer. You have to know who your customer is. What kind of value you're going to deliver to a customer by simplification. So for example, the infrastructure folks, they have to keep in mind your customer is the application guys. The application guys, they do not really care about the compute, the storage, and networking, these components. They really care about, can you offer them a really good sound infrastructure that never goes down, high performance, and can run their applications seamlessly. So you have really to keep that in mind when you design your technology objective. What are you trying to simplify? and then take that mindset into your own technical transition plan. What do you want to simplify? I think that's a very much a mindset thing. We always, no matter which specific functional domain or role we are in, technology professionals, we have always to keep in mind who is our customer, what we do, how do we deliver the business objective to our customer.
And on that same idea of only thinking about components, not solutions, is there a component that companies tend to get more hung up about than others, or not necessarily in your view?
Not necessarily.
Interesting. Okay, so they really get focused on the components, not the larger solution. All right, so here's your point number 3. This is for companies to avoid when they're trying to simplify their cloud. Quote, assuming that a perfect solution exists, unquote. I mean, that almost might be a moment of philosophical advice, because of course we know that perfection does not exist in life, and it certainly doesn't exist in cloud. And of course, today's rate of change in the IT landscape makes perfection even more elusive, wouldn't you say?
Yes, absolutely true. I probably can expand it in 2 ways. And the first is, I would say the perfect solution never exists. We IT professional, our job is always to find the fine balance between a number of factors. It could be technology, it could be cost, it could be time to our customer, because timing is also of extreme importance. And those 3 components, those 3 factors constantly change. So I'll give an example. Many companies at the very beginning, they really like cloud computing because it gives the technology and it gives you the speed to deploy. But very quickly, they realized cost starts to become prohibitive, very, very expensive, especially when your data grows to multiple petabytes. Then you realize there's a hidden cost. You have to pay enormous amount of money to do for egress cost. Then you have to chase and find the next fine balance between those 3 things. So the perfect solution never exists. The second point I want to bring up is, I think this is something new because the world we are living in, we have a data explosion. With data explosion, not just about the volume of data, is really the variety of workloads, different type of data jobs you have to run. And in that case, you have many, many options. So I give you a very specific example here. Many, many years ago, there was no big data platform. At that time, the only option you have is to dump your data, run the workloads on the same relational database platform. Moving forward now, we want to move those workloads to a big data platform, to the cloud or other on-prem solutions. What do you want? But then it's very interesting. You'll always find a 10% or even though a minority, may not be 10%, but they're a minority. They actually really love what they used to have, because what they used to have, the relational database, gives them the performance, even though it doesn't handle that kind of big volume. So again, when you do simplification, you have to look at all your constituents, your customers. Some may really love the new solution give them. Some may really find those are the unique corner cases. They really like what they used to have. So you really have to think about all your customers, what is the right solution? The word is not very perfect. What is the right solution for every use case?
What do you do when a team member comes back to you and says, hey, we really like that relational database that seemed to be the center of things? Do you just continue to include it? I mean, how would you handle a problem like that?
So I think it goes back to the fabric, right? So now you suddenly realize my approach may very well be is I give you a new fabric. And you will have the customer say, I really don't like the new fabric. I like what I have today. So again, goes back to before you start your journey, you don't want to be surprised. You understand all the use cases you have deployed in your current solution, your fabric. And then it designed the approach and who want to move out to the new solution versus who want to remain, who still find a good value out of an existing solution. Then comes into the picture is the traditional program management, the negotiation, all these cost benefit analysis. Those are the old school, not so sassy things, but still these are extremely important in this cloud simplification journey. So that's why it's pretty much the same. Those are the same elements you will see from the business transformation, digital transformation programs.
Interesting. All right. So your fourth point in terms of mistakes to avoid when simplifying your cloud is, quote, overextending a solution that works for one scenario to another application without proper testing, end of quote. So what's an example of this?
I feel we tend to see this in the application world. For example, in the application world, how things start is you have a business requirement, you have an issue, you have a problem you need to solve. So you go out and do your evaluation and you find a software you really like. So for example, you look for a solution to manage your sales motions. You go out and find a tool. You really like it. It's initial success. And then it happens to be that you may have a adjacent requirement in the overall sales marketing work. You have a marketing requirement. Then what do, right? What happens, what could usually happen in this scenario is go back to those software providers. They want to look for opportunity to expand their business, grow their revenue. So the space they tend to grow into is the adjacent spaces too. So you typically see a company who started off offering sales solutions, they want to extend into marketing space. So when those two things come together, when you have initial success with the company in this specific domain and you look for something else, and that company happens to want to upsell, cross-sell their new product into that new space. So when those two things come together, you will say, let's jump in. Let's maybe forego some of the due diligence. But I think is for IT professionals, the moment you really need to pause and be careful is when you have initial success. Those are the moments you need to still pause and think about, is it the right approach?
That makes perfect sense. We were talking beforehand of what you're doing now with the digital transformation project. That sounds really fascinating because I think so many businesses are so focused on digital transformation now. They're using it to gain competitive advantage, but it's confusing, much like cloud itself. So talk to me, if you would, about what's going on with digital transformation.
So the digital transformation at Seagate is the umbrella name for a number of initiatives. We started off by simplification of our infrastructure. So we consolidated data centers. We moved some workloads to the cloud. We keep some workloads on-prem. Now we're in the process because we are also finding the cloud could be cost prohibitive. Now we are repatriate some of the workloads back on-prem. We're looking for the cloud to run some of the workloads that does not charge egress cost. So that's coming to the live cloud. I don't want to spend too much time on the live cloud approach. So that phase has been completed. What we are doing now is we are implementing the next generation ERP system to run Seagate business, not only for the current business, but a futuristic platform to support and enable the business growth for the next 10, 20 years.
That is really interesting. Grace, I think you said it. I learned a lot. I greatly appreciate you sharing expertise today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, James. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.